Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. To get started, why don't you just take a moment to introduce us and introduce your practice to us and what you specialize in.
Sure. So, my name is Ryan Staton. I'm one of the managing partners and co founders here at our firm, Staton Walsh. Our firm, we like to tell people we are a business and wealth solutions firm. It's really kind of how we market ourselves to the business world. And so, a lot of our work is in the business and corporate space, focusing in our realm of being a financial advisor, focusing on corporate retirement plans, retention strategies for key employees, compensation packages, things of that nature. But we also serve individuals and families in what we call our private wealth capacity as well. And so we really like to approach this idea of being an advisor to business owners and to the corporate space, but doing it in a more well-rounded fashion. And one of the things we like to say is building the bridge between the business life and personal life and helping them be, as cohesive and comprehensive as possible.
Interesting. I like that, building the bridge between the two. Do you find that with your clients, often the two are kind of related?
Yeah, the business and personal are almost always intertwined in some way, shape, or form. Financially, personally, there's family relationships that could be part of their succession plan, and so it covers a pretty wide range. And I think a lot of businesses, the old adage is you keep your work and personal separate. So an employee,
Mm-hmm.
you tend to go to work, you do your job, you come home. Work life is work life, home life is home life. When you own a business or you're an executive of an enterprise, it just doesn't, that clear line of separation gets blurred pretty easily. And especially from a financial perspective and all the other things that go along with those responsibilities. And so a lot of times the two aren't separate, but they get treated as separate. And so part of our job really is to work with these owners and try to bring those things back together and have them part of one, like I said, one comprehensive or cohesive conversation so that we can keep things on track and also give them a little bit of peace of mind that everything is where it needs to be, sort of a sanity check for them, so they can focus on the stuff that they're really good at.
Awesome. We'll talk more about and dive deeper into kind of how you approach that, doing that with your clients in a little bit. But I want to ask you a little bit more about kind of how you got started and what inspired you to do this, and a little bit about your journey. Um, and you also have, yeah. Well, let's start there. Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to do this.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that my origin story in this world was sort of by accident. I had some people in my life, some neighbors that lived close to me growing up that were kind of in the industry, not as advisors, but in the world of wealth management and investments. And one of them approached me shortly after college and kind of gave me this, "What are you doing with your life talk?" And the long story short was he got me some interviews, which really introduced me to the world of wealth management. And to be totally honest, I was drawn to it initially because I thought it was a really cool way to do unique stuff and make a lot of money. Just being perfectly honest. And
What do you mean by unique stuff?
yeah, I think working with people in a capacity, using things like I had a background in finance from an educational perspective, and so a lot of it was corporate finance, which is a lot of number crunching, spreadsheets, financial planning and analysis, but it didn't really have, in my opinion, the same level of interaction or connection with the people that you were working with. It was sort of numbers on a page. And so the draw to me was we have the numbers on the page, but what's the person, who are the people behind the numbers? Like, how are we digging into that? And there are many roles in the corporate finance world that do address some of those things, but I just wasn't seeing those opportunities. And wealth management to me was kind of a draw of this is a really good way to quickly get into an industry that I think can massage like kind of both sides of your brain, so to speak. You could do
Ah,
you can do the
interesting.
technical stuff, you can
Yeah.
have the people interaction and kind of merge those two together. And so that was a huge draw. I didn't really fully understand the work that the folks were doing or what this was going to be when I started my training. But I figured that out over time. And I think the what's kept me around and what's kind of motivated us and ultimately led to us starting Staton Walsh was I loved the way, or I love the impact, I should say, that we could make on people's lives. I just didn't feel like the places that I was working or the people that I was working with truly believed in the mission the same way that we did. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
believe in the level of transparency and honesty and integrity that was required. And it's no secret that people have varying opinions about the financial services world and advisors and who's good, who's bad, and who's ethical and not, and so for us, we just wanted to take that to another level. We wanted to be truly be different and differentiate ourselves and be disruptors in the marketplace. And so
Nice. I love it.
yeah, the only way for us to really truly do that, we tried at other organizations and with red tape and bureaucracy and kind of the corporate side of it, we realized that the only way we were going to really be able to do this was to do it ourselves. And so that's sort of how Staton Walsh was born. Very condensed timeline on that. I mean, a lot of this happened over a period of 10 plus years being in the business already, and then forming it into what our vision was, and then my partner Devin and I actually uh, acting on it, and kind of getting the courage to go out and do it, and
Yeah,
been the best thing that we've ever done, and I think has really taken
it's awesome.
our message and the way we do things to another level too, because it's our branding behind it, and it's very much tied to who we are as
Yeah,
advisors and as people.
yeah. I'm noticing a theme. Something that inspired you is, the bridge between business and personal, and bringing those two together, thinking of them and streamlining them, connecting them, and also, you mentioned the bridge between. I think you said the left brain and the right brain. The bridge between the numbers and the spreadsheet side, and also the human side, the people that you're working with, and connecting those two with transparency and advocating the client's best interest. So, and I love you guys went on your own, man. The best way that you could disrupt was to do it yourselves and free yourselves from some of the bureaucracy of and I love that. I think that's really cool. It's always a scary thing to do too. So, congrats on taking that leap. How many clients do you guys have now?
Yeah, so our practice is split between, like I said, institutional and private client and family. Some of those are merged together, but on the institutional side, we have about 75 companies that we serve in those capacities. And then on the private wealth, private client side, it's about another 150 households, families that we work with. And so we are very much built, and we've always been built to be a more boutique, high touch shop. And so a lot of times we are spending more time with people. We're more in the weeds. We're there with them every step of the way. We really try to position ourselves as a primary trusted advisor for most of our clients, and so because of that, we like to keep our bench small, so to speak, and our client base smaller, and higher touch, and it's worked really well for us. I think we have some niche markets that we're in that also help with that, and that helps keep us lean and small, but still be a very good profitable organization as a result of that.
Yeah, I love you intentionally are choosing to be small so you could offer that boutique, white glove, high touch service. I could see how that would be really important, considering the theme of kind of being a bridge builder. I know you use your own terms for that, but that's just kind of what
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm sticking with.
The theme of the
Um,
bridge is very much ingrained in our marketing too. On our website, if you go on it, front page, building a bridge between wealth and purpose. Like that's a big part of our messaging as well. And we live in Maryland. The Chesapeake Bay Bridge is one of the more iconic bridges around. And I know in Baltimore, there's been some bad news about other bridges, but that is, there's a picture of the Bay Bridge. That theme of building bridges is really a big part of our founding and what we do and how we do it. So
love it. All right, let's talk a little bit about your clients. You mentioned some specific niche markets, and for those who aren't familiar, a niche is just a segment of a market that's kind of specific. So, what are some of the niches or the specific markets or the types of people that you're working with?
yeah, so our primary is really in the world of construction. So contractors, both trades contractors as well as government contractors. So in our geography, proximity to DC, there's a lot of federal work, there's a lot of state work. There are some specific things we do in those retirement plans related to some of the contracts that these companies have. It gets a little more technical for the sake of the viewer. Maybe this time I'll spare everyone all the crazy technical details. But ultimately, what happens is in that market there are specialized ways that we can use things like retirement and benefit programs that companies sponsor to help utilize dollars from those contracts to save companies money, provide better benefits for employees, and then ultimately that trickles down to a healthier, more engaged, and more profitable company. And so that's a huge niche for us in the 401k space. That is
Mm-hmm.
really the fastest growing part of our business. But another part of that world is really planning with those companies for exit and succession, ultimate sale.
Mm-hmm.
It's no secret that private equity has been targeting many different industries for acquisitions, for portfolio
Right.
companies. Construction and a lot of different elements of construction have been on that list for a while. We have a lot of clients that are a little bit more paternalistic with their employee base, and they want to take care of their people. They don't want their company to become an asset on someone's balance sheet. And so
Yeah, definitely.
knowing that niche and knowing how those companies work and their value and how they could be sold is really another part of that. So construction is huge for us. That's really where we're kind of nationally recognized in terms of some of our relationships with trade associations and others. But that's a place where we spend, I'd say, about 80% of our time. That's where 80% of our client base is. And then others, on the private client, the family side of the house, just because of my background in exit succession planning for my previous life, that has served as a big growth vehicle for us. As anyone who's been through an exit or is preparing for one, working with us in that capacity in any type of business. So that's another area where we spend a lot of time, not niche to an industry, but kind of niche to a specific need or type of transaction.
Interesting. Okay, so construction trades. I actually have a blue collar background. Before we started our business, I was a construction worker. I wasn't like a contract. I was a worker, so I was like digging ditches, crawling through attics, that sort of thing. So I definitely know what it's like to be. That's a big inspiration for me to start our business because man, doing construction in Florida is brutal in the summertime. But I like that. Also, government contractors. You're close to Washington D.C., so that makes a lot of sense. And families and business owners preparing to exit. So these are very specific, yet very different niches. And one of the things I like to do in episodes is I like to dive deeper into what those people are thinking about when they come to you. So we probably should only pick one. We'd only have one niche to explore in more depth. Um, any preference on which one you think we should explore about? I want to understand more about the questions, the concerns, the situations that one of these niches, somebody from one of these niches would have when it prompts them to reach out to you.
Yeah,
Any preference for which one you think we should talk about?
I think if we generally talk about business owners, especially ones that are potentially preparing for some kind of transition, that dovetails with a lot of the other things that we do, and there are some connections there. So I think that's probably the easiest one to.
All right. How about the construction businesses? That specific niche.
Yeah, so in the construction business world, a lot of that there are some of the same considerations as there are in our business transition or our exit planning conversation. As far as the 401ks are concerned in the qualified plan space that we're serving, that really is centered around what's called prevailing wage or scale work. So a company has a job that is, let's say they're building a school, for example. And so you mentioned you were a laborer on a construction site. You have a wage rate that you are paid that's stipulated by a contract. There's a base component of that. So say it's $30 an hour. And then the contract on public sector work, so anything sponsored by a government agency, also has what's called a fringe component, which could be, let's say, $10 an hour in this example. And so you have the option as an employer to pay your person 30 and then use the other 10 to help subsidize benefits for those employees. So think health insurance, group life insurance, 401k, retirement, all of those things kind of get PTO, all that gets lumped into that. Or you have the option where you can just pay it in cash. So you can pay your people $40 an hour, and then if you still want to sponsor benefits on top of that, it's just an additional cost to the company. And so these are conversations that a lot of businesses in that realm struggle with, because when every dollar you pay in cash, for any business owner out there, you know this, every dollar you pay in cash comes with an additional payroll burden. You have to pay half of the payroll tax. You have to pay workers' comp. It influences the cost of your insurances. And so the general math on that is for every dollar I pay in cash payroll carries another 20 to 35 cents of payroll burden for the company. So I pay a dollar plus I got to come, that's the dollar that my employee gets. I also have to come up with another 25 cents, call it, to cover some of my other burdens as a business owner. So when you're trying to run a profitable business, especially in construction, it's a thin margin world. It's hard to be really, really profitable.
Yeah.
That 25 cents matters a ton. And it can be the difference between being profitable and not. It can be the difference between being able to offer your employees benefits or not. It is the difference in terms of you being able to competitively bid on your next contract, because you have to bid at a higher rate because you have to cover more costs. And so the strategy that we talk about is, how do we use that $10? Some of it could be for cash payment. Some of it could be for benefits. The things that we directly implement are those 401k plans. And so by taking the money, instead of paying it in cash and paying it into a bona fide, what's called a bona fide benefit plan, you
Mhm.
as the employer save on that payroll burden because it goes into a benefit plan. It doesn't get paid as payroll. And so that means every dollar I put in the 401k avoids that 25 cents of additional burden. What does that mean to me as a company? And how does this really play out? Let's just get to like the real world application. That 25 cents of savings is money that adds to profitability. It allows business owners to take better care of their employees. It gives them savings for the future in the form of a retirement account. It helps subsidize benefits. It helps them set up other programs. It helps them give back or cash bonuses or other things that they can do. It just gives them a lot
Mhm.
more flexibility, is really what we kind of say. And ultimately, we feel like it does serve the benefit of the individual employee as well.
Sure.
It's no secret that that industry is generally underserved by our industry. And so I like to tell the companies that we work with, we're not just by implementing these strategies, we're not just serving you as the business owner and your bottom line. We're also here to serve the interest of the employees on the job site, to make sure that they can save for their future, that they can talk to someone and get advice, but more importantly, that they can eventually retire with dignity at some point in the future.
Yeah.
The worst thing we hear from employees is like, I'm going to do this as long as I physically can, which, I grew up in a blue collar household and a background. Neither one of my parents went to college. And I
Yeah.
saw the toll that that takes on people physically when you have to work physically demanding jobs well into your 60s and not have the
Yeah.
freedom.
It's brutal, man. You can't do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
I remember I'd work with guys who'd be in their 40s and 50s, still climbing ladders, and they'd be popping pain pills because they just couldn't do it anymore. It's brutal. Yeah, you got to think about that stuff. So it sounds like you're a real strategic partner in helping construction companies who deeply care about their team, take care of them, guide them on that. And I love that. I could see how would be really valuable for a um, contracting company, a construction company who uh, cares deeply about that. What I want to talk more about is I want to understand more how your clients find you. So, where do you typically find your clients? How do they find you?
So, a large majority, because of the niche of construction, we belong to some national associations that are construction focused. So we are the national financial wellness partner for one. It's called the Associated Builders and Contractors, or ABC for short. So we're very big in that arena. I think a lot of it is brand recognition. As I mentioned earlier, we have some national recognition as a result of some of those partnerships. Um, in the area that we live in, I'd say most of our client base is in this mid Atlantic region. A lot of it is word of mouth. I think, a lot of times our clients come to us and say, I was talking to someone about a job and they were saying, you got to talk to these guys, or your name came up. That's a lot of what our inbound client opportunity, that's where it comes from. That's just a result of years of Devin and I putting in a lot of groundwork to build trust, build good relationships, and I think more importantly, build a reputation of being transparent, having integrity, and always looking out for people's best interest. And the construction community is one of those where they all work together in some capacity and they all talk. And so, I'd say not unlike other industries and other communities, but in this area, it's just one where it takes a high level of trust for them to want to recommend people that are in outside industries like financial services, accounting, tax, legal. They have to really like you and they have to really trust you. And so, it took us a long time to develop that, but now a lot
Mhm.
of our client base comes from just our reputation, referrals, and then some marketing that we do in some of those associations as well.
Excellent. I love it. I love how you're building your firm, the reputation you're cultivating. Word of mouth is the best marketing, so, or best advertising rather. I want to dive a little bit into how you work with your clients and what it looks like to work with you in an ongoing capacity. But first, I want to understand more about kind of where you're taking your firm and what your vision is for it. So when it comes to your practice, where do you see it in the next couple years, 1 to 3 years? What's your vision? Are there any goals you're working on?
Yeah, a lot of our goals and our targets are centered around the people that we serve and the size of impact that we're making. And so there's a couple parts of our business where we really measure that pretty closely. One of them is in the retirement plan space. We measure number of participants served. And so we don't look at the size of the plans based on assets under management. We want to see the number of people. That's really how we feel like we measure impact, and the impact that we're making is the more people that we can impact, that we can educate. That's ultimately where we want to be. Over time, we have kind of 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year targets. Our goal in the next 10 years is to have 20,000 participants in all of our retirement plans. That's 20,000
That's
people
awesome.
that we have a touch point with, that we can move the needle, make sure that they're getting what they need to save for their future, to retire with dignity. We want to serve in that same 10-year capacity. These are just numbers. We just went over these. So these are right off the top of my head, but
Hmm.
500 families that we want to serve in terms of our growth. And so, even over the next 10 years, that's really not a huge jump in the grand scheme of things. I think our intention is always to be big enough to serve the clients that we're working with, but small enough to care. And
Yeah.
so, a big part of our growth cycle is making sure that no one advisor on our team has more than a certain number of relationships that they're serving, so that you can really get to know people, you can really get to understand them. The other things that we look at: successful business exits. How many families have we helped exit their business? I've been a part of over $1 billion of transactions, meaning, and these are all small, closely held family businesses.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and some larger than others, some really big ones, some, a couple $1 million and a family business getting sold to a third party. Our goal is not to increase the size of that transaction, but to increase the size of the impact. And so a lot of our numbers and
Nice.
goals are really based around impact. So 20,000 retirement plan participants, $1 billion. So we do have a life insurance practice as well. So we do sell life
Oh
insurance
wow.
to businesses and families. We want to have $1 billion of death benefit. So that's future dollars that will be paid out to families as a result of some of the planning and the work that we've done. 500 individual families served, and we want to be part of at least 50 successful business exits. And so that's all over a 10-year period. I could say we're well on our way to doing that. And part of it
Awesome.
just having conversations with people and making them understand who we are and what we do. Some kind of what we're doing here today. So.
I love it, man. I love how clear that is. I love how the numbers are super specific. I think that's one of the challenges personally or professionally, when you set a goal, it can be kind of vague, and you really want to get specific so that you can measure how close you are to it. And you certainly got that down, man. 500 families. I love that. Anything standing in your way of that? Any challenges? Anything you anticipate?
Yeah, I think ultimately one of our biggest challenges that we've seen is that we've started to grow our brand on a national basis. And so, like I mentioned, a lot of our clients are between Philadelphia and Northern Virginia. Probably about 80% are between those two cities and everywhere in between. Because of our niche and because of our relationships with some national organizations, we now have clients in 17 different states around the country. And so that, geographically and in the world of, with technology and Zoom and Teams and all these other mediums that we have at our disposal, it's made it really easy for us. But I do think that, growing in manpower too and people, hiring good people that kind of share the same mission that we have, I think that's really our roadblock is not finding the people to work with. It's ultimately being able to serve at that capacity and to continue to grow that. So I wouldn't say it's a roadblock for us yet. What I do think is that we are very intentional. The team that we built today was very intentionally built, and we are highly selective about the people we choose to work with. And so I think over time, just making sure that we can continue to find people who have similar values, that their vision aligns with ours, and they really care about people at the same level that we do beyond some of the numbers and metrics. And unfortunately, our industry has been taught to measure success by assets under management or revenue and some of these other things, which are important. Don't get me wrong. But as you could probably tell by some of the goals that we set for our firm, we look at more about impact and the money. We view it
Yeah.
through the lens of we want to make an impact and the money takes care of itself. And
Right.
so we need to
Yeah.
find other professionals that also align with that vision. And so
Interesting.
it could be a challenge.
So your challenge isn't necessarily you feel like you're good about you're building up national brand recognition. You're finding a good inflow of new clients, but you're highly selective with who you work with, and your biggest focus, the challenge that you see, is actually finding the best advisors to help serve these people in a way that allows you to retain your white glove service and your commitment to transparency and the quality of the service you want to be known for. That sounds like that's your biggest challenge, and that's your mission, is finding great advisors to bring
Yeah.
on the team too
Yeah.
as you scale and grow.
That's our challenge today. I mean, we have, I think to your point, our other challenge is right now, because we like to be boutique and we like to be selective. We do institute things like waiting lists or not being able to take on clients. We're very intentional about that part of our process. We could have 10 new clients tomorrow, but we don't want to take on 10 new onboarding projects at the same time, because can we give
Sure.
that level of care to those people, or are we just going to cycle them through? And so that becomes a challenge with that model. We really like that model. I wouldn't view it as a negative. I just think it is challenging in the sense that, to intentionally grow a practice that way can be a little methodical and not always
Yeah.
ideal, but it's what we've
Sure.
chosen to do and it's what we're committed to.
Sure. Well, I think there's merit in being methodical. I think sometimes, often people are encouraged to move fast and break things, but I think it's important for someone to follow their own convictions and their own beliefs, and that's the cool thing about owning your own business, is you can approach it in your own way, and you have to choose to follow your own values and what you want to be known for and what you're passionate about, and that offering that quality service is definitely something that you're passionate about. And too much growth without enough infrastructure can really compromise that. So it's good that you're being super intentional. All right, now what I want to do, if you're cool with it, is I want to move into talking a little bit about your actual process.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go a couple minutes over our time, if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
Typically we end at 30, but we'll probably go another couple minutes, because I really want to talk about what it looks like to when you start working with your clients, what that process is. So maybe you could take a moment to kind of explain and walk through your actual process. So if somebody were to become a client today, what does onboarding look like? What happens the first couple of weeks? What does it look like to work with you during the course of a calendar year? I'm loading 3 questions into one,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, our process we've been intentional about breaking it out into three separate stages, and so within those stages, there's different steps, but the three stages are discovery, strategy, and planning, and then implementation. And so those are just kind of general buckets where we place different engagements, different ways we work with people. And the reason why is the discovery process could just be figuring out if we're even a good fit for one another. Can we help you? Is there a problem that we're actually going to need to solve? Or are we identifying a future problem that we can address down the line, and we can kind of table these conversations? In our discovery process, it's really important to us to get to know the people that we're working with and for them to get to know us. Who are we? What are our values? Why are they important to us? Who do we choose to work with, and why should you choose to work with us? And so we ask about not just goals, financials, but some of their dreams, some of their aspirations. I'm also really big on this concept of tailoring the process to the individual. And so we
Mm-hmm.
actually it's a little unique and a little outside the box, but we have a brief behavioral questionnaire that we give
Snap.
to clients that
That's
tells
awesome.
us what type of person they are, how do they communicate, how do they like to be communicated to, so that we can build
Nice.
our process around that. So if I have someone who's highly analytical and wants spreadsheets and numbers and needs that level of detail to really get to a place where they have understanding, they feel educated, they feel empowered, I want to know that in advance so that I can tailor my process to make sure too, not only that they feel comfortable and they absorb the information that we're giving them, but more importantly, so we can match members of our team to them to make sure they have the best possible experience. And so, if someone is a little bit more conceptual in nature, then we'll build a process around that. And so that's something that we built at our founding, that we felt like has been a big differentiator in our process because it gives us the ability to say, we understand you at a deeper level. We understand how you want to be communicated with, what's important to you. And then they're really easy questions for the client. It's like 6 or 7 behavioral questions, and we have some
Nice.
scoring that we do, and that's how we align our process with that individual. So that's kind of the discovery phase. Strategy and planning, and then implementation look very different based on the client and the engagement, but a lot of times we can be the strategist and give ideas, and someone else, some other professional, may be involved in implementation. Sometimes we're doing everything for that client. So we've split up that process and built it in a way that we can customize it and piece it out. So if someone comes to us and says, I have someone that I'm working with, I'll give you a perfect example in an exit planning scenario. We had a client who needed a strategy on how to most efficiently sell their business to a third party. They had a financial advisor that they worked with for 20 years, and they liked the guy. They had a personal relationship. There was no opportunity for us to get any assets from the sale, but they needed
Mm.
that. They needed that strategy. And so we charged them a fee. We put it together for them. They successfully sold the business. That other advisor came in and helped with their wealth management on the ongoing basis post transaction. For us, we're perfectly okay with that. We're always looking out for clients' best interest first. As long as we get paid for the work and the value that we provide, it's ultimately the client's choice, and we don't force anyone's hand on that. I think that's a little unique and atypical too for people in our business, but again, those are just some of the positions that we've taken that I think make our process unique in that we're consultative in nature always. That's where we start, but how we actually end up implementing will be based on the client's existing relationships, comfort with us, or what their needs are, and we can be a part of that or we don't have to. And we've built models
Absolutely.
that can serve that.
I love that you've built out models and you can match the model to the individual's needs. Um, but you do that in a way that reflects that white glove service. I love the behavior analysis because that's so true, man. People learn different ways. People need information communicated to them in different ways. Otherwise, they're just going to glaze over and be polite and say, yeah, sure, that sounds great, but have no idea what you said. So I love that. It also helps you pair them with the right team members. I think that's awesome. What I want to dive into really quick is I want to better understand what it looks like to work with you during the course of a calendar year. What does that interaction look like? Do you like do regular check-ins every quarter? I know it depends on what service you're providing, but maybe you could just help us understand quickly if somebody's working with you over a longer period of time, it's a longer engagement. What does that ongoing relationship look like? How's it kind of structured?
Sure. So, from our perspective, the first year that we spend together with every client, we spend a lot of time with them, which is why we stage onboarding and kind of spread those out over the course of the year. But we will work with someone the first 90 days post engagement, whatever, regardless of what the engagement is. We spend a lot of time with them. We get an opportunity to get everything organized, make sure we're getting on the right path, start building out planning, start talking about strategy, future implementation. And then typically at minimum, we're meeting the clients that we work with at minimum on a quarterly basis once we leave the onboarding cycle. And so typical onboarding is about 90 days. Once we leave that cycle, we have regularly cadenced quarterly meetings. A lot of our clients, we tell them we make ourselves available to them as much as they want to use us, but we will proactively make sure that we're reaching out on that regularly scheduled quarterly check-in or progress meeting is what we call them. We check in. If you want that meeting, we'll get together and do it. If not, we can kick the can down the road another quarter. Totally up to you. But if anything changes or you have any material change in your life or what we're doing together, let's get on the calendar as quickly as possible. And so we have everything structured in a way that we like to do regular check-ins. I used to work in a world where we did the once a year, let's do a portfolio review. I personally hated it. I didn't think it was of any
Yeah.
value to the clients we served. And so I think having those things scheduled and us being proactive about that is something that's really important to us. And so over the course of the year, the first year that we work together, people see us a lot. But part of our onboarding process, going back to kind of how we bring people in, we also ask them those questions. How do you prefer to meet and how frequently do you want to meet? So that we can understand that.
Wow.
I don't want to force you to meet with me quarterly if you absolutely don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll meet with you as much as you want. And so we have part of our onboarding questionnaire that we give outlines those things. So if someone wants to meet in person, we make sure that we're absolutely available to meet in the office or at their business. If they prefer, one in person, one virtual, we kind of build all that out, and it's a lot of work. That's also why we have to be structured the way that we are, so that we can make sure that we can meet those needs of the people that we're working with. So first year, a lot of interaction. Year two and beyond, it's really client driven. But we mandate for most of our clients that we meet at least twice a year, and I'd say a large majority of them we meet more frequently than that.
Okay, I love it. So I love how you ask the client what their preference would be for communication and how often to meet. So you tailor that meeting cadence around that. But at a minimum, you said 3 per year or 2 per year.
Two per
You
year
you
on
require 2 per year,
yeah, ongoing.
and then
Yeah,
go ahead.
ongoing
Sorry.
is two. Yeah.
Okay, ongoing is 2. So minimum is 2, but you are also available. You tell them set the expectation. I'm available. You can contact us anytime in between that, but the minimum's 2. And on top of that, you also custom tailor the meeting cadence based on their preferences. And I love that. I love it. All right, well, let's land this plane, buddy. I think you've given us a lot of great information. You've painted a clear picture of what it's like to work with you, and the custom nature of your approach. So, for someone listening who wants to get in touch with you, what should they do next? Where should they go?
So we always send folks, especially new to us, go to our website, www.statonwalsh.com. There's some more information about who we are, what we do. It's very clear. Everything is transparent. Our pricing models, everything is all on that site. So I just like to tell people, if you're just doing some research, you want to find out more about who we are. We we love putting all that information out there on our site. There's also information on how to get in contact with us and best ways to schedule for any meetings. So go to the website. We're always happy to connect with people as well and have these types of conversations to figure out how we can help.
All right, Ryan. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your practice with us. We appreciate you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
My pleasure.